I have 7 o'clock, and I think all of our school board members are here. Mr. Helsley, are you here? There he is. Is there a motion that we reconvene in open session? And as you make and second motions, if you will please state your name, that would be great. So is there a motion that we reconvene in open session?
I move that we reconvene in open session. Cindy Walsh.
Is there a second?
Second, Michelle Manning.
Thank you. It's been properly moved and seconded that we reconvene in open session. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. We are now in open session. The Shenandoah County School Board hereby certifies by roll call vote that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the Shenandoah County School Board. Each member responds, "I so certify," when called.
Ms. Walsh,
I so certify.
Ms. Klein,
I so certify.
Ms. Manning,
I so certify.
Mr. Keller,
I so certify.
Mr. Helsley, Mr. Helsley, Mr. Helsley, Ms. Wetzel,
I so certify. And Mr. Helsley,
I do certify.
Oh, good. Thank you.
thank you.
Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I move we approve
I
the
move-
agenda as presented. Shelby Klein.
Is there a second?
Second, Michelle Manning.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no.
Aye.
The motion carries and the agenda is approved. The Shenandoah County School Board welcomes public comment during each regular meeting and schedules 2 public comment sessions during each meeting, one for agenda items near the beginning of the meeting and the other for non-agenda items at the end of the meeting. The chairman reads a summary of the expectation for public comments before each comment period for the benefit of the audience. Speakers will be called on in the order in which they signed up. School board members do not respond to public comment during the meeting. Each speaker has up to 3 minutes to speak. When the buzzer sounds, time is up and the speaker should finish the sentence started and then stop. The board expects that each speaker will be courteous, address comments to the board and not to individual board members, the superintendent, staff members, or the audience. And speakers may present written comments to the clerk of the board. And I do not have a list of speakers. Does someone have a list of anyone who has indicated they want to speak?
I do not have a list.
Let me be sure I did not get a list emailed to me here. All right. Ms. Rittenauer, can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, I can.
Do you have anybody who's indicated they want to speak?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am, I do not.
All right. Hearing no one wanting to speak, we will continue. Next on our agenda is our consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I move that we approve the.
I move we approve the
agenda as
consent agenda
presented.
as presented.
You got two of us.
Bye.
Okay.
Both of us.
I think Ms. Walsh made the motion, and Ms. Manning, was that you seconding it?
Sure, I can give you a second.
All right. And you will notice on the consent agenda, we have donations, approval of submission for VSBA Excellence in Workforce Readiness, and authorized signatures in the absence of the superintendent, and approval of minutes from April 1st and May 7th, and approval of paid bills ending 4/30/20. Dr. Johnston, did you want to make any comments on any of those items that we're going to vote on in the consent agenda?
No, I don't. Thank you.
All right. Does anyone have any questions or discussion? Hearing none, it's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Walsh,
Yes.
Ms. Klein,
Yes?
Ms. Manning, Ms. Manning,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mr. Helsley, Ms. Wetzel,
Yes.
Mr. Helsley's microphone is on mute.
I'm trying to get it off.
You
Oh,
got it.
you threw it off. We heard that. So did you vote yes too? We'll have Mr. Helsley raise his hand. All right, the consent agenda has been approved. Now we don't have anything under instructional agenda. Informational agenda, we have policy updates. Dr. Johnston, who will
Yes.
handle that?
The policy committee met, it seems like an eternity ago, doesn't it? With Ms. Manning and Ms. Wetzel to review policy changes per VSBA policy changes. And so they've gone through them with a fine tooth comb. I know Dr. Heingardner's on here as well. If you have any questions, I know he's happy to answer those, but so I'm not going to read them all to you. They're there for information, so you won't vote on them until next month. Again, if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them now. And like I said, Dr. Heingardner's here as well. So that's as much as I'll say about it at this point. Thank you.
Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll take those up for a vote next time in June, and we'll move on to action items. Under action items, we have personnel. Is there a motion to approve the personnel list as presented?
I move that we approve the personnel list as presented. Cindy Walsh.
Is there a second?
Second, Michelle.
Is there any discussion on the personnel list? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, on the personnel, move to approve the personnel list.
Ms. Walsh,
Yes.
Ms. Klein,
Yes?
Ms. Manning,
Yes? Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mr. Helsley,
Yes.
Ms. Wetzel,
Yes. The personnel list is approved. Next on the agenda, Superintendent's monthly reports. Dr. Johnston.
I don't have any specific comments regarding the monthly reports. I would let you know, since we have a budget status report on here, which is, comes up through April 30th. I did want to let you know that yesterday we were notified of our sales tax revenues for the month of May. And I'm very pleased to announce that they are higher than they were in April. And they are higher than they were in May of last year. So that means that should that continue, we still have the month of June to go through in terms of any potential reductions. But we were anticipating a reduction, and I'm very glad to say that we received no reduction. So sales tax revenues remained fairly healthy. I would, again, that would take us through the period of late March. Or I'm sorry, yeah, through late March. And so any potential sales tax reductions that occurred in April will show up in June. But as I noted, some businesses are doing quite well. I think I shared with you that Lowe's has been extremely busy. And I know that like many of you, hopefully, I've been frequenting the carry-out restaurants and have enjoyed trying to give some business to our local vendors. So happy to answer any questions you might have on that.
Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Johnston? Hearing none, thank you, Dr. Johnston. Report of board members, I'm going to do like I did last week and call your name. You can either make comments or pass, and I'll start at the north this time. Mr. Keller.
Pass.
Ms. Klein. Ms. Klein, do you have any board member comments?
Yes. No.
We can hear you, Ms. Klein, if you thought we couldn't. You're muted.
Okay.
now, Ms. Klein.
I don't hear.
Any comments, Ms. Klein?
Ms. Klein, your mute button is on.
Well, let's go on to Ms. Manning and we'll come back to Ms. Klein.
Just a couple of things, two comments and a question. One, wanted to share, you all know I mentioned this previously, that I'm a big fan of Dr. Steve Constantino. He spoke at the VSBA annual meeting last year and participated in the last 3 free webinars that he's done, some of which are geared towards educators and school districts. This last one actually was geared to anybody who's stuck at home, particularly with children and trying to navigate that. And I'm going to share his page on my Facebook page because I think it can benefit a lot of people, and you can see all the webinars there. Also, tuned in a little bit this morning, this afternoon, for Central High School graduation that was live on Facebook, which is a really cool thing to see. I started a little watch party on my Facebook page, kind of unintentionally, but I just let it roll, and ended up having a few of my friends who live on the eastern half of our state that we know through Eve's dance group, and got a couple of really nice comments because our principals have really risen to the occasion, and we're doing something that very few are. So just want to give a big shout out to what they're accomplishing, and 8 hours of 3 days of graduations, and it's really quite a feat. And somebody commented and said, that's somebody being a fountain, not a drain. I thought that was an interesting kind of little quote. The last thing is a question, mostly for Dr. Johnston, regarding, as we move through all of this, since nobody has a crystal ball and nobody knows what's coming, I'm reading a lot of articles that have been shared by the VSBA and other news sources about what districts are doing in order to try to prepare. And beyond just thinking about what the alternatives can be, drafting things for kind of different scenarios if we go back to school normally, if we start late, if we go every other day, if we go every third day, counting how many students they can, measuring classrooms and how many desks fit at 6 feet apart, and just wondering where we are in the process so that when we do get information from the state as to what education needs to look like or the options that we have, that rather than starting to calculate at that moment, that we can just pull from one of the plans we've kind of envisioned and, plug and play. So just wondering where we are in that.
Thank you for that question, Ms. Manning. It's very timely. In fact, I talked with the board chair today, Ms. Wetzel, to seek her input on having a board member serve on a committee or a group that we're pulling together to look at all of the aspects of this. And she and I decided that I would give Mr. Keller a call, and he has agreed to represent the board on that since you did such a nice job with the Student Discipline Committee. So Mr. Keller will be helping us. I've reached out to a parent representative who has children in elementary, middle, and high school, and she has agreed as well. I won't mention her name yet because it's not a public announcement at this point. But what we're doing is also following the Virginia Department of Education, the state superintendents. He has a steering committee or task group, he's calling it, that is also looking. We're reviewing plans from other states. We're reviewing plans from other divisions. I always appreciate when board members send me articles and things too. I know that Ms. Wetzel sent me one today from Missouri. So all of that's helping to inform us. And I would say to you that while the pandemic has created a lot of challenges and issues for us, and everybody agrees the situation we're in is not ideal, we also recognize that some good things have come out of this. It's forced us to relook at the way we do some things. And so we want to keep permanent some of those good things, get rid of the bad things, of course. And so what we're doing is moving right ahead with that. We're also looking at a way to regularly communicate that out in a welcoming and calming way to our parent community. Also, some of the updates I've sent to them has started to, I don't like to use the word foreshadow because that has a negative connotation, but to kind of project how we're planning. And one of the things I always go to first, for example, is, folks may say, well, gee whiz, all we've got to worry about is classrooms, but it's every aspect of our organization to include, for example, how do you transport students? We have 77 passenger school buses. If we're coming back to school with physical distancing, that 77 passenger bus is not going to haul 77 kids in one haul. So we're moving full speed ahead, and we're going to be putting some information out. And we've got a pretty good cross section. So we've got that group. We've got the group around the CARES stimulus funding, which again is a cross-representative group as well. And all of that. So your question is very timely, and I appreciate you asking it.
Thank you for all of that information. I know Mr. Keller will do a great job with his experience and keeping us in mind and informed as well, so that we can feel like we're a little bit more a part of the process going forward, because it's presumed that we have been. So that's good news. Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Manning. Ms. Walsh. And all of us are frozen on my screen, so I guess you can hear me. Ms. Walsh, did you have comments? Oops, she disappeared. Mr. Helsley, do you have comments?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
What about what's the plan for summer school on campus?
Right now, Mr. Helsley, we have determined that given the governor's stay-at-home order, we are not going to be conducting any face-to-face traditional summer school meetings over June. We are planning to launch what we have typically done in summer school for high school courses, which is a virtual program anyway. It's called Apex. We're also looking at potentially if we're not able to open up to face-to-face summer school in July, we're opening with social distancing. We're looking to do a kind of a different calendar model, if you will, so students may not come every day. That we would continue to offer the online course options for students. And then if we can do face-to-face, but with physical distancing, like I said, kind of on a rotation basis, or, do a half-day program, maybe 2 half-day programs. So we're working through that right now. I don't have further details yet because part of that, we're preparing for different contingencies. If we can go face-to-face, if we can't go face-to-face, then what does that look like? We do have some options there. All of our teachers are participating in professional learning right now around blended learning, which combines online and face-to-face through Virtual Virginia as the platform. And so we're planning for perhaps use of that to help leverage that.
My view, if it's any way possible to have summer school in July on campus, I think it would send a good signal to the community that we're going to try our best to start small, which I don't know what the enrollment would be, let's say 50, I'm just guessing. And that will send a signal to the fall that we might be able to open up with whatever the committee comes up with and whatever the state guidelines are.
Yeah, I can assure you this, that should the governor's order be lifted, that schools may reopen, we will be having summer school face-to-face in our buildings, without question.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good to hear. I've already thanked Linda about the brochure we had about teachers of the year throughout. I want to highlight one that I worked with when I was at Muhlenberg. That's Catherine Greasy, who teaches math and geometry. And what an outstanding candidate she is. I don't know how many years experience she has now, but I do know that I've been out about 12 to 13 and she was there. And she was just a well-organized teacher. I'm glad she got that award at Muhlenberg. Also, I observed a note from the guidance counselor at North Fork Middle School who sent a note to a neighbor's child that was very thoughtful and meaningful to her through the mail. And it was very meaningful to her, and I observed it this morning, and she needs to be commended. I don't know how many she sent out, but if she was guidance counselor, maybe she picked and choose. But anyway, it was very, very touching. And finally, I'd like to thank our good chairperson, Karen Wetzel. I had a long day on the farm on Monday, 12 hours. I go get the mail, and what do I find in my mail was a thank you note from Karen Wetzel with a piece of candy. I didn't know you could send candy through the mail. It was a thin piece of whatever, and Karen, I did eat it after the day I had on the farm. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Helsley. Ms. Klein, let's go back to you. Did you have any comments?
I did have a few. Can you folks hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. I apologize. I'm not sure what's going on with my laptop, but when I go to mute and unmute, it doesn't work. So I just left it on with the fear of my dogs barking. So I apologize if they start. I wanted to thank those folks that worked on the code of conduct, the policy, all the policy information that has come through. I know that's a lot of work. So, I mean, I know that's Dr. Johnson, Dr. Heingardner, Michelle, and Karen, I believe, were all working on that. And I know code of conduct was probably, and Dr. Heingardner, I apologize. I think that was almost a year-long process, if I'm not mistaken. So thank you all for your efforts. I too, like Michelle, had
I had a meeting at 7, a school board meeting, so I had to listen to what's going on.
getting feedback from someone else in the group. But anyway, I did happen to slide by Strasburg High School for a few moments and was able to see a couple graduates, none of which I knew, but I thought I'd just slide by. It went very smoothly. All the staff at Strasburg High School and Sheriff's Office are to be commended, and Dr. Johnson working with the principals to make all those unique experiences happen. So thank you all so much. And that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Klein. Ms. Walsh, did you have some comments?
Cindy's frozen and she's just listening. So she texted me what she wanted to say.
Thank you.
She wants to thank the teachers and the principals for all the hard work they're doing to get rooms packed up and the belongings back to the students and preparing for any number of scenarios for the fall and just kind of getting ready for whatever comes their way.
And is that it?
That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Walsh.
And thank you for the snack.
Thank you. Everybody is frozen on my screen. I don't know if they are on everybody else's. I just have one comment. I have a friend from Harrisonburg City who's working, she's a teacher who's working on the back to school task force at the state level, and they're meeting twice a week. I think she's zoomed out, but I'm sure they'll have some good guidance for us. Hearing no other board comments, it's time that we have public and staff comments on non-agenda items. Ms. Rittenauer, do you have anybody who is indicating they want to speak?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am, I do not.
Hearing none, I think the next thing on the agenda is adjournment. So thanks everybody for being so patient and bearing with us. And we will now adjourn the meeting. Everybody have a great evening. Thank you all.